Hi, sorry. Could all of the speakers from groups 1 to 8 come to the front who are speaking on behalf of their group? Thank you. Do we have Julia here? Saida? Do we have Saida? And Jonathan? Is Jonathan here? Okay. Jonathan? Do you think that's her? Do we have Jonathan? Okay. And who's the other one? Group 3? Group 4? Do we have Saida? Saida and Jonathan for group 3 and 4 as rapporteurs? Or if anyone has their numbers in their group, could they text them, please? Thank you. Jonathan, our guest of honor, and we can get started. No. That one. Yeah. I think we are almost ready to start on time. So let me go ahead and get started now that it's a little bit quieter. Good afternoon, everybody, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies, gentlemen, fellow youth. Welcome to this year's high-level closing for the 2026 edition of the IRENA Youth Forum. My name is Lidia Santlozano, and it is my greatest honor to be moderating the closing today, as I am joined with Haneen, Andrea, and Sajid, members of IRENA's Youth Council, a group of young people created to represent the voices of young people around the world as we hope to work together with IRENA to drive a just energy transition for all, which is exactly what all of you have been doing for the past 2 days, and something that I know each and every one of you will continue to do so for years of your life. This year, we have been joined by over 150 young people. To date, that is the largest number of young people that we have seen flooding the corridors of IRENA's assembly. So congratulations for being such a record number of young people. This has been the largest number that we have seen from the very start, 6 years ago in 2020, since the inception of IRENA's Youth Forum. I started just like you in 2020. Mind you, I might have been a little bit younger than most of you. I even finished high school, and now I'm a little bit further up in my university career, but I, just like you, was a delegate, sat eager to learn more about the energy conversation and be a part of it. I, just like you, was inspired by the older, maybe older younger people in this room, because I could see the progress that was beginning to have and the energy that was so contagious in this room. And from the conversations that I've had over the past 3 days, I can tell you that that same energy is just about growing in the space right in front of you. If you look around, the person on your left, on your right, remember their faces, because I am sure that they are the ones that you're going to continue to see year in and year out at energy conferences around the world. You might have to remember their name because you will never get tired of seeing them. I don't get tired of seeing the people that I work with on a day-to-day basis. Treasure them because they're the ones that are going to motivate you to keep going even when times get hard. I thank my fellow IRENA Youth Council members for being those people for me. Thank you for inspiring me and working together throughout these many years. Today, throughout this high-level closing, we will also be joined by representatives of international organizations and the member states of IRENA. And we hope to have these inspiring conversations, meaningful teamwork, and contagious ambition to drive the energy transition forward in this year's assembly, especially in these times of uncertainty, just like today. Under the theme of youth innovation and digital solutions from AI access and renewable energy, the 2026 Forum has aimed to explore how young leaders, just like yourselves, are working to harness digital technologies, AI, and innovative business models to expand access to clean energy solutions. Within our closing, we hope to share the outcomes of the conversations that we've had. Not just the conversations we've had in panels and discussions, but also those conversations that we've had over laughs at coffee breaks or on the bus ride home. We hope to solidify our recommendations as young people and produce a meaningful youth statement for years to come that reflects the growing momentum of powerful youth engagement in the energy conversation. The need for a just, rapid, and accelerated energy transition that is innovative and just at its core is clear. And that responsibility to bring that to life falls upon each and every single one of us here. It falls upon us to help advise for the design of inclusive policies, sustainable financing of projects, and innovations that push the frontier of what we once thought was just impossible. But we, as young people, cannot ever think of doing this alone. We are not alone, because it is partnerships with IRENA, its member states, organizations around the world that can help us reflect, advance, and innovate to make our ideas on how to accelerate a clean, just energy transition a reality. Even when we have these challenges going forward, let that not be a force to stop us, but one that motivates us to keep growing faster. Whilst this energy transition may seem like an impossibly large feat, we must remember that we are never working alone, and I cannot stress this enough. When I look around the room, I see friends, I see mentors, I see people that inspire me, I see new faces that I'm excited to partner with in the years to come. I see the policymakers of today. And so turn to your left, turn to your right, make sure you know that person's name, even if you forget a couple of times. Because you never know just how quickly that day is going to come when you're sitting side by side, designing a budget, a policy, a conference that might likely change the life of someone who doesn't have currently access to electricity. And so, with that powerful message of working together and connecting as one, as you form part of our IRENA family today and for years to come, I would like to start our conversation by introducing another member of our IRENA family, Haneen, as we move to the first part of our high-level closing, to showcase the ideas of you, young people, as we tackle the thematic areas of work to begin with. So without further ado, Haneen.
Thank you, Lydia, for the great introduction. And hello, everyone. I'm Haneen, and I'm honored to moderate this session with Lydia and be part of today's discussion, where we will be hearing back from the Action Lab groups on their work around the AI Innovation Energy Access trilemma. Over the past 2 days, these groups have worked really hard gathering insights, engaging with one another, and challenging ideas to come up with thoughtful and practical responses. What makes this Action Lab important is that it turns complex ideas into shared responsibility, connecting innovation, ethics, and access through real youth perspectives. Each group focused on one primary dimension of the trilemma and worked through the real trade-offs involved. The goal was not to solve everything, but to arrive at one clear response that youth can truthfully act on. As you listen to each group, I encourage you to focus on 2 things. One, what the group believe youth must do and what they believe must not to be compromised in the process. We will hear from each group, starting with the first and second groups. This group explored AI through the lens of inclusive energy access, focusing on where AI can help and where caution is needed. I will introduce the first speaker. It's over to you, Julius Basil.
Thank you. I hope the mic is working. Working, right? Okay, so distinguished delegates, dear colleagues, friends, I guess, at this point, I'm happy to represent Group 1, the group that looked at the, I would say, very important topic of inclusivity that definitely should be a key priority in the energy transition process. So we can probably agree that in this context, AI could play a very useful role if used carefully and responsibly. So AI could support the maintenance and reliability of, for example, decentralized energy systems by, let's say, identifying signs of failure before systems could break down. AI could also assist with basic load planning for community energy systems, for instance, that could power essential services such as clinics, schools, livelihoods. AI could also help aggregating local knowledge, turning simple community observations that right now exist maybe in silos or offline into usable system-level highlights. But we definitely have to be careful because AI could also be overpromised or misused. For that, we have to keep in mind that AI cannot and should not compensate for the absence of basic infrastructure, long-term financing, political commitment, and responsible public policies. Also, using AI optimization to manage chronic shortages instead of expanding generation, storage, or grid connection is not the right way. It should also not blur the structural and historical roots of energy poverty and the lack of energy access, and should not prioritize efficiency over equity, accountability, and community control. Therefore, we would suggest keeping the following principles in mind. Primarily, the goal of AI must be to empower communities, not to exclude them. AI should be treated firstly as an enabler, not as an end goal or a final solution. And it should also strengthen community control rather than corporate efficiency or state surveillance. Also, if a problem could be solved without AI, AI should not be necessarily used. Its value must be mostly demonstrated by reducing harm and, as said before, empowering people or contributing to solutions. Also, if and where AI is applied, it must rely on reliable and accessible data, particularly in underserved communities, where data is often missing or uneven. For that, over the next, I would say, up to 5 years, priorities in the least developed and underserved context should therefore focus on building safe, local, and importantly, context-specific data infrastructure for the targeted AI use, of course, with involving the communities impacted in the planning process. Also, AI design must definitely reflect structural awareness and responsibilities, recognizing structural inequalities. In this sense, AI should support public responsibilities, collective decision-making, and providing equitable services. We had to come up with one concrete example, which we were thinking of like as an AI tool sending early warning signals to communities. This tool could support community-defined energy prioritization, for example, like especially for clinics and schools that lack smart meters or automated control processes. In this case, the AI could detect early warning signs and could send simple actionable alerts, such as when to reduce load, or when to recharge batteries, or contact a technician. And this could be a system working without internet access, relying on basic mobile communication. Another case we could think about would be like a comparable example of a community, for example, flood risk alert system. So installing sensors upstream in a river could trigger warnings sent to our locally trained focal points that could then alert the members of the community. But crucially, it, of course, had to be kept in mind that this project must be owned and governed by the communities and designed by them, not by external actors of any sort. So to conclude, we would say that AI should definitely empower communities and should be a tool for providing access and reliable energy systems and not the end goal. Thank you.
Thank you, Julia. And now moving to our second speaker, Sofia Tepipian.
Hello, everyone. So the primary issue that my group discussed is how data and the context of the data that all foundational models and LLMs are built upon is one of the most critical issues that we need to address in terms of AI for access. So this is the outcome that we produced. AI solutions, the results they produce, and the recommendations they provide can often be difficult for the population to understand. To ensure that AI solutions empower communities rather than exclude and marginalize, it is critical to maintain radical transparency regarding the context of the data from which the AI models are being trained and the outputs derived. The origins of the input data, environmental and social context, as well as proactive disclosure of the model's inherent biases and limitations can help parties understand the implications of the recommendations provided by the model in a more comprehensive manner. Failing to follow this design principle may result in model drift, where the models may be providing technically accurate but not contextually irrelevant outputs or untraceable decline in the model's performance as its operating context evolves. If youth want to navigate the AI innovation energy access trilemma responsibly, we believe they must prioritize the context and relevance by embedding transparency directly into the development lifecycle, ensuring that the logic, origins, and limitations of a tool are as accessible as the service it provides. This requires a shift from viewing AI as a finished project to viewing it as a dynamic, accountable process that must be continuously reconciled and adapted with local realities. Building infrastructure is a futile investment if local populations are unable to maintain the equipment without constant external support. To break this cycle of dependency, we propose a practical, low-barrier AI solution that utilizes a large language model as a localized knowledge, mentoring, and guidance platform for equipment maintenance and troubleshooting. By training the AI in specific manufacturer manuals and technical instructions of the hardware installed within a village, the tool serves as a bridge between complex data and community action. Users can ask questions in plain language or via voice notes and observations, and receive an instant, accurate diagnosis derived directly on human expertise, which can often be expensive and delayed. Moving away from technical jargon and language barriers, this can empower communities to perform immediate repairs and routine maintenance. By shifting from a model of external reliance to one of digital self-sufficiency, this solution ensures that the community possesses the knowledge to protect its own assets, transforming infrastructure into a truly sustainable and self-reliant system. Thank you.
Thank you, team, for grounding the discussion in real access challenges and practical considerations. Now, we will move to group 3 and 4. These groups focused on innovation pathways and where exclusion often appears as solution skills. Before I introduce our speakers, please, I remind you that keep your statement to 3 minutes. First, we will start with Jonathan Lopez.
Thank you, and very grateful to be here today, and wanted to say hi to all of the other distinguished delegates. I think it's been a very fruitful conversation over the past few days, and lovely to be able to have the opportunity to close it here. I think we've all learned so much from one another in circles where we're, everybody's from a different corner of the planet. So it's incredible what can occur in those spaces. So our topic was about enabling innovation without exclusion. So, I'm going to try to not repeat some of the things that have already been said because there's a lot of issues. We want to include everything possible in the design of new innovative systems as we move forward and tackle every single problem. But as we know, often there are competing priorities that we have to decide between. At the end of the day, we want to redesign systems so that they are regenerative and redistributive by design from the get-go, as opposed to how we've been doing things. So our statement basically focuses on trying to identify what is the biggest roadblock for innovation as youth are trying to tackle it. And what we've identified as the biggest, instead of trying to focus on one specific roadblock, we couldn't decide between financing and what we call technical assistance for business operations. So everything from accounting to financing, tax, and legal advice that innovation and entrepreneurs need. We think that all of this can be grouped into one single solution, what we call technical assistance business incubators. So we as youth need to advocate so that our nations are providing these systems that are local in nature, or these business incubators that are local in nature. And at the same time, make sure that the innovations that we're working on are not just catering to capitalistic metrics and goals, but also are social in nature. So in summary, what we think youth need to do to navigate the AI innovation energy access trilemma is, again, collaborate and advocate for localized technical assistance business incubators where we can share best practice lessons on legal, accounting, financing, and other operational business matters, and at the same time ensuring that the innovations that we're building are tackling social issues and have a social impact aspect to them, and ensuring that the algorithms that we use are not just trained from global north data, which is the most accessible, but doing everything possible so that we also seek out global south data. And while we seek out global south data, ensuring that that doesn't leave out marginalized populations like women and people with disabilities in certain countries. So essentially, that is our statement.
Thank you, Jonathan. Moving to group 4 with our representative, Saida Mamdova.
Dear colleagues, hello. My name is Saida Mamadova, and it's my pleasure to be here today representing Group 4. So while we were discussing the topic of innovation without exclusion together with my group, we tried to look at the every stages where the startups, when the startup goes through. And then we figured out that it's the exclusion is systematic. It doesn't happen at some stage, but then the two stages that were distinctive for us were the design stage and the funding stage, that they're very intersectional and one can't go without the other. The design stage has exclusion in terms of users, the language, access to data that we've been discussing a lot over the past 2-3 days. And then in the funding, the funders and investors, they look for, look for speed, scalability, and cost efficiency. So how can we make sure that the designs of the innovations that we're funding in are exclusive? Not exclusive, inclusive. So what we came up with is we think that a solution can be a policy-linked funding certification problem, or mechanism, I'm sorry. So this mechanism works in a way that the governments have bodies within the ministries that are responsible for giving out the grants or funds to the innovation teams. So what that body does is they have criteria that are determined based on national priorities, and then the startups and businesses that go along with those priorities and are inclusive, they get those certifications. And then the investors are more motivated and encouraged by the government to invest in those startups rather than the others. So that way, we cannot change the mindsets of investors to go for the more cost-efficient and scalable innovations, but we can manage our innovations and startups in a way that they're inclusive. And that way, we can both control the design stage and the funding stage. And the key message that our group wants to deliver is we want to make inclusion a requirement and not an afterthought. Thank you.
Thank you, Group 3 and 4, for showing how innovation pathways can shape more purposefully. So we'll move now to Group 5 and 6. These groups looked at how digitalization is reshaping energy access and what safeguards or youth-led actions are needed, starting with Group 5 with their representative, Bridget de Graaf.
Hi, good to see you all here. We want to speak about the importance of building renewable energy infrastructure in the Global South through ensuring financing becomes available and strengthening collaborations both technically and enhancing advocacy skills. When it comes to the financing needed, a quick Google will show you that 3% of the global clean energy funding goes to a whole continent of Africa, and that in 2024, 40 billion was invested, where 100 billion is needed. That is quite a big gap. And it is very simple. Without money, you cannot build, because you need the money to hire the people. You need the money to get the materials. And if you don't have that, it's not going to happen. When it comes to skill transfer from potentially global north countries or countries in the global south that do have these skills to the locations where it is needed, the technical skills can, for example, be developed through looking into projects where the installation and the maintenance is first done together, so that these skills are built in the process. And once you have established it, it doesn't just make a renewable energy facility that is built, but it also ensures the long-term added value. These skills may sound daunting, but I have also installed solar panels. It's not that hard. It should be feasible to transfer these skills. When it comes to advocacy, it is very important to ensure that there is a fast response if something in the project happens that was not foreseen beforehand. If there are other effects that are negatively impacting the community, they should be able to ensure that this reaches people that can undertake the appropriate action needed. So this should be put in place as a safeguard. Furthermore, it is needed to understand the needs of the community and not just randomly build something because we think that is good, but it actually doesn't really help that much. And finally, if the project is successful, they can present this and showcase this, and funding can be raised for additional projects. Now, what would a tangible example of this kind of financing look like? For example, there could be an EU subsidy that is set out to collaborate between an EU company and a local company. To conclude, if youth want to navigate the AI innovation energy access trilemma responsibly, they must build renewable energy infrastructure in the Global South by arranging financing and collaborating between Global North and South concerning technical and advocacy skill development, while ensuring universal social conditions are not compromised.
Thank you, Bridget. And moving now with Group 6 with Osama Khalid.
Yeah, so thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I'd like to keep it short. So our topic is the impact of digitalization on energy access models. So digitalization is already changing energy access models by reshaping how electricity is delivered, paid for, managed, particularly through smart meters and prepaid systems. These tools allow utilities and service providers to monitor consumption remotely, reduce losses, and offer flexible payment options, especially for lower income or previously unserved customers. However, many of these new models rely heavily on smartphone, internet connectivity, and digital payment platforms. As a result, people without access to devices, reliable connectivity, or basic digital skills are increasingly excluded, even when physical electricity infrastructure exists. In this way, digitalization can unintentionally create new barriers to access while solving old ones. So, for example, previously, if you had to book a flight, you could just pay in cash and get a paper ticket. But nowadays, if you are unaware of the technology or are not able to use phone, it becomes very difficult for you. To ensure digitalization strengthens rather than undermines energy access, several safeguards are essential. So first, technology neutrality is critical. Access to electricity should not depend on owning a specific device or using a specific app. Second, offline and low-tech alternatives such as the old methods, physical payment options should be there. Third, digital literacy and inclusion programs are needed to ensure users understand and can safely use new technologies. The role of youth is very important, and an intervention that we had discussed was that we need to engage young people in education, awareness, and feedback roles within their communities. Youth can support households in understanding and using new technologies, helping lower adoption barriers and facilitating access rather than exclusion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, teams, for bringing a practical lens to how digital tools affect access on the ground. Now, moving to our last two groups, these groups examined questions of governance, ethics, and decision-making, power in AI-driven energy systems, starting with Sumai Perez.
Hi, everybody. I am Swami Perez. I come from Peru. And during these days, we were talking about the need to improve the AI development in the energy transition through the trilemma of AI, innovation, and energy access. According to this objective, from the governance, ethics, and power group, we have to remake the following points or tensions. First one, the critical minerals. AI depends on critical minerals, which are extracted mostly in the global south, in countries with high levels of poverty and weak social protection. The risk is clear. Promote just transition while relying on extractive practices is an ethical contradiction. The transition cannot be called just if we don't take care of environment and vulnerable communities. We must demand international oversight and accountability for mineral extraction, to not sacrifice lands and communities in the name of innovation. 2. Use of water. AI systems consume large amounts of fresh water that can create struggles in the access to clean water in rural and indigenous communities. We must promote multilateral water governance where responsibility is shared and the human right to water is protected. Third one, production and economic model. Energy transition can be treated only as a technology challenge, focused on producing more energy and faster. The risk is greenwashing. We change technologies, but keep some extractive economical models that conduce to the increase of consumption and inequalities. We must prioritize the energy efficiency before expanding the energy production in line with the principles of the just energy transition. And finally, geopolitics. AI, energy, and critical resources are now part of a global power competition. Without a fair governance, the colonial patterns reinforced shaping asymmetric models of control and value resources. We must strengthen the regional governance and cooperation so countries can protect their energy and sovereignty. The AI, innovation, and energy access trilemma remind us that innovation without justice doesn't expand access, it deepens inequality. A just energy transition must balance the trilemma by putting first the people. Thank you.
Thank you. And now moving to the representative of Group 8, Nikola Bakoc.
Dear honorable members, first off, I want to thank Irina for platforming us energy youth leaders and for giving us a voice. Thank you. We, the youth, are carriers of your legacy, so we implore you to invest in us today so we can continue the fight against climate change. As AI data centers increase in quantity and therefore in energy demand, we, the youth, would like to highlight a deepening inequality both in energy access and in governments. Speaking of energy, the current data center energy demand is 415 terawatt hours annually, and this is slated to increase to over 900 terawatt hours in 2030. Let me repeat that, 900 terawatt hours in 2030. That's a massive energy increase. Now, this is going to drive a lot of grid congestion, which in turn is going to increase the energy prices, which is going to increase your utility bills. And this is not something in the future. Already, we see utility prices increasing up to 250%. Now, if you ask me an increase in my energy bill by 250%, I would be pretty mad, right? Similarly, this increase in demand is driving away investment infrastructure into grid infrastructure away from low income and low energy access users into the areas where these data centers are being built. Going to governance, this decision-making power regarding AI, data centers, and et cetera, is concentrated in governments, regulators, utilities, and these gigantic tech companies that are lobbying more and more to deregulation. We demand to be positioned not as symbolic participants, but as co-designers, decision makers, and we demand to be held accountable by our actions. The youth has to have the privilege and the responsibility of this decision making. To achieve this, the current leadership needs to give us a voice, but not just a voice. We need you to invest in us, specifically in the skills that we, the youth, need to have in terms of digitalization, energy system makeup, the legal and the financial wit to make informed and evidence-based decisions. If there's one thing to take away today, it's that AI is an amazing tool, but it's a very dangerous weapon. And we, the youth, want to be informed. We want to be heard. We want to be trained, given a voice, and be a part of the energy process. So give us a chance. We won't let you down. Thank you.
Thank you, teams, for helping us think more about responsibility and decision making. And thank you to all groups. What's powerful here is not that everyone agrees, but that we can clearly see the different trade-offs that youth are navigating across these dimensions. These perspectives will help inform the next part of our discussion. We will now move into an interactive dialogue where youth will have the opportunity to engage directly with our speakers and continue this discussion with the audience. I'll now hand it over to Lydia, who will introduce our speakers and start the dialogue.
Thank you, Haneen, and to our 8 speakers and everyone that was working behind the team for such a powerful discussion. I would now like to introduce Her Excellency Dr. Nawal Al-Husseini, the permanent representative of the UAE to IRENA, and Gary Singh, who's the Deputy Director General of IRENA, both of whom have been key pillars of shaping the voice of young people and engaging with us throughout the years. So I'm very excited to start this interactive dialogue with all of you to share your own reflections, ideas, and questions to both of our panelists. So if anyone would like to start us off with, either Gary, Dr. Nawal, or any of our youth delegates, you can get started.
Should I just speak?
Yes, you can start.
Good afternoon, and I'd like to, of course, welcome my co-panelists, but also all of you, because I was sitting there behind and listening to what the groups had to say after you came back and from your discussions. And I have to tell you that, it was just extraordinary the way you were putting the perspectives across. And all groups were excellent, but, what really struck me was what, I think it was a group 3 or 4 that said that when you're looking at AI and digital transformation, you have to have systemic thinking and have to look at how you get into thinking about the design and also thinking about funding so that you don't exclude, because it's not to be looked at in silos. And I think that is such a powerful understanding of how this ecosystem works. So I just want to congratulate all the groups and all the insights that were provided, but also to say that it's absolutely a pleasure to hear these kind of insights from our youth delegates who have been enriching our dialogues and our discussions at the assembly. And thank you so much for being here and being with us.
Thank you so much, Gary, for your reflections and a great input from group 3 and 4. If anyone from the floor would like to, yes, Malak, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone, my beloved youth delegates and everyone, Dr. Nawal, Ms. Gowri. I just had a question for Dr. Nawal. If today's youth ideas were seeds, what must change in our system for them to actually grow?
Hello, everybody, and it's always, I have to say, this forum is the highlight of the assembly and all the activities around the assembly. It's always refreshing to see so many of you coming back here, some of you for the first time, but some of you coming again, and listening and hearing from you. I believe the youth is what we are seeing now. They bloomed already. I think that the challenge is for us to keep up and to make sure that we are empowering them and providing an enabling environment where they can even flourish further. I believe your question depends on certain region. I think some regions have already created several platforms to engage the youth and listen and have them as part of not only the decision-making process, but also with designing those decisions and the environment for such decisions. And in some other regions, maybe there's still some work to do. I think what we are doing here is very important because you have this platform to knowledge share and to understand what worked and what didn't work. And it's very, very important for us to share what did not work because it's very very refreshing and great to share good news and to share success stories. But I think what's more important is not to repeat mistakes and not to repeat efforts that proven to be maybe not leading to the right direction. So I think this is a platform where you all can speak to each other about your own experiences and what are the things that you did right and it worked for you, and what are the things that could be basically transferable to other regions and other countries and other sectors, and what are the things that it's not going to work for any region. So I don't think there is a recipe that applies to everybody. I think it's very much depends on the region, depends on the youth themselves, depends on the sector, and depends basically on many factors that we need to look into it in detail.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Lydia. Thank you, Ms. Aneen, Ms. Gowri, and Dr. Noel for being here today. Really appreciate it and means a lot to the youth. I think over these past few days, what's been really clear to me and everyone who's been here is that the youth has a lot of passion, a lot of creativity, and a lot of capability. But often the gap which separates the youth from those who are already working in industry and making change is credibility, not having done things before. So what advice do you have to youth as individuals, but also as communities to build that credibility to make a change and contribute more? I'm happy for any of you to answer it, to be honest.
I think first and foremost, I have to say that at least for me, it's always energizing to be a part of these discussions because of the energy and the passion that you bring, absolutely. But whichever sector you're in within the renewables and the energy transition, there are going to be challenges and there are going to be ups and downs. and they will test your resilience. They will test your resolve, and every day you need to wake up with the same kind of enthusiasm. And I think the mantra has to be to really believe in your capabilities and your ability to make that change happen.
So if I may, just to add on Gauri's point, I think it's very important for all of us to understand clearly the power that we have, but also we need to be, or we need to start to understand and be aware of the basically where we need to improve, because the first step to death basically is not moving and not growing. So you need to always remember that there is always an opportunity for growth, and there is always an opportunity for learning, and we need to learn and we need to enhance that, and we keep on doing it. As Gauri mentioned, sometimes it's difficult to wake up in the morning because you are back to do this, to repeat the same thing to a different audience, and to try to work on something that you have been working on for years and years and years, and but you reach exactly maybe the same, not the same result, but a different wall, but basically the same outcome. So it's being persistent and being patient is very, very important, and understanding that sometimes you need to be very hard and sometimes you need to be very soft. So it depends on the challenge, it depends on what you are doing, and maintaining that passion. It doesn't mean that it's going to always work. You maintain this passion to pursue what you want to do when it's not working, because it's very easy to move forward when all the doors are open. But once you reach an obstacle, once you get to a door that seems to be locked, this is where the actual passion needs to work, because you will need to find other ways to circumnavigate that, and to go around it, and reach where you want to reach.
Thank you, Dr. Nawal and Ms. Gary. I want to add one point. Being a youth myself, I think it starts from us. Basically, we're still learning, we're still gaining knowledge. So me this year, not the same as last year. I won't be the same next year. So I think starting by ourselves and sharing that with our friends, the connections we build, this will make the biggest impact we can do, basically. As when we improve, we actually reflect that with our peers. So starting with ourselves and trying to gain as much as possible from everything, university studies, work or internships, basically, and helping others, that will actually make the most.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Yes,
I
please go
see so
ahead.
many hands up, but maybe we can have, starting with you.
Hello, thank you for this space. I just want to highlight something that in Group 6 we came to as a conclusion with the connection between digitalization and access. I think that our group was very effective at identifying a gap. So digitalization is unlocking new models for access, but a lot of times this also highlights a problem of connectivity or lack of understanding of digital tools. And we think that that gap is something that the youth can help fill with education programs, with training programs in communities where these new alternative methods for access are being tried out. And I think that especially in the context of the work of IRENA and the work of governments, creating programs specifically for youth-led efforts that educate communities when the new models of access are being implemented would be an extremely helpful way to close that gap and to get youth involved that are well educated and knowledgeable on digital tools. So I would just wonder to hear if there are already programs like this that are filling that gap, or if maybe this is the opportunity think about that and to create that and engage the youth. Thank you.
So I think you're absolutely correct, because one of the big gaps that often comes between a good policy and the implementation effectiveness is outreach. And for people who the policy is for them to be able to actually access it and to take advantage of it. And on a lighter note, a very endearing picture that comes to my mind is of a young girl teaching her grandmother how to use a smartphone so that she can send voice messages to her other granddaughter who's studying in a city far away. So I think the bridge, the work of a bridge that the youth can really do for ensuring that the communities can access these tools, these mechanisms, and this whole world of AI and digitalization that's opening up and increasing their access to new ways of interacting with energy. I think the youth can definitely play a very strong role in. And one of the, I also want to say that when our delegates used to come, and I pointed it out in our earlier interaction when we were at the MBZ AI Center. They were not so serious about the perspectives that were coming from youth, or in their mind they were not very serious about how they can get the youth to help them take what they are doing further. But I think that has changed. And that has changed because the delegates that come to the IRENA assembly and they hear you and are part of the discussions, and they understand how the youth can really be a bridge to help them get fresh ideas on policies and regulations, but also be a bridge between the policymakers and the communities. And I think that's really a very big achievement of having the youth forum here on the sidelines of the assembly.
Thank you. Maybe Yugmi?
All right. Thank you so much. The past few days have been really great learning from everyone. My question was kind of directed to Ms. Gauri and also Dr. Nawal. I wanted to ask personally, with all the experience that you've had, what are some key moments where, working with youth or listening to their perspectives kind of shaped how you approached a policy or a decision? And if you had any advice for any young professional who's starting out in the field but is not sure of the direction that they're heading in. Thank you.
I think one of my, there is a moment I keep remembering, and a story that I keep repeating is when I was leading the Zayed, at that time it used to call the Zayed Future Energy Prize, which is now the Zayed Sustainability Prize. One of the categories that we introduced at that point, newly introduced, was the global high schools. And that category basically was for us a huge opportunity and an eye-opener, because we saw how the youth at young age, being in high school, had the level of their awareness and the level of their understanding, not only for the challenges, but of the solutions that's available and presenting them, was mind-boggling. And we realized then that sometimes the problem is not with the youth themselves, but the problem is actually with their educators, because their educators and their teachers are not catching up with them. So while the youth is, very open, they understand the challenges, they want to be part of the solution, the educators are maybe 10 steps behind. And this has led to one of the initiatives that we are, as the UAE, supporting with IRENA, and that was an instructions we received from our Minister of Foreign Affairs, His Highness Sheikh Abdullah bin Zayed, is like, why don't we create an initiative about educate the educators? Because we need the educators to be the mobilizers of those actions and not the hinderer and the obstacle of it. And that was for me very, very important lesson that we always need to understand where the challenge could be. Another thing that we launched, and that was when I was also leading on the Abu Dhabi Islamiyati Week, we launched a competition on why turn it off. It was a competition aimed at schools, like young age. We didn't really think we were going to receive a lot of innovative ideas, but it was really amazing. We had so many incredible and powerful videos that we didn't believe that they were actually homemade. Like those videos were recorded at home, the kids were doing them themselves. That was really, really great. So my point is sometimes we need to understand where the gap is, where the challenge is, and work with partners to address that and fix that.
Thank you, Dr. Noel. The girl behind Julia, who had her hand up for a while.
Hello, everyone. My name is Farah Ibrahim. I would like to take this chance to thank you, our speakers. Thank you for your time and insights, and thank you to the organizers of this fruitful event. It's definitely a pleasure to be a youth delegate. Across many forums, this is my question. So across many forums, we hear that youth are being included in conversation, which is important, but inclusion can sometimes stay at the level of visibility rather than impact. So from your perspective, what is the difference between being a youth, what is the difference between being youth included and youth having a real influence? Thank you.
So if I may start, and maybe Gauri can speak from her experience, and Irina, I think the difference is how the youth preserve themselves and how they behave and how they act on those platforms. So from the UAE point of view, years back, we always had youth with us in every official delegation. So they were not just observers, they were actually part of the delegation. They had a seat at the table. We had youth on boards, we had youth in decision-making platforms. What I mean by it's the choice of the youth themselves is how prepared they come to those meetings. Are they coming to those meetings because they are just, they want to be in the picture and they want to be filmed and they want to go on the strip, or they actually went and studied and did in-depth research and understood exactly what is requested. So we, and I'm talking about the UAE, we never, ever basically underplayed or undermined or looked without seriousness to any idea or any concept or any thought that we receive. And everything we get, we always take it seriously. So this is why I mean, what I mean is like, it's a choice that the youth would make. Do they want to be contributing to the solutions? They want to be contributing to the debate, or they just want to, go and Google something for 5 seconds and come and talk about it as if they're subject matter expert in it. So, the depth of knowledge and the depth of research is sometimes what's needed, and taking those assignments seriously.
So you mean it depends on the youth himself or herself? Like they can either be just there or visible and that's it, or being actually there and influence. So it depends on the person himself. Thank you so much.
Yeah, in fact, if I could add, what these platforms offer is an opportunity.
Yes.
And what you make out of it is something which your own preparedness to engage with that platform and the stakeholders that it gives you an exposure to and the discussions that it gives you an exposure to take back and use it and go to the next engagement much more better prepared to actually make a difference.
Exactly, since you have all the resources, then that's when you need to make out of it, like the best out of it. Exactly. Thank you so much for your insights.
Thank you, Farhan, for such an insightful question and to the answers as well. I'm mindful of time, and there are lots of questions as well. I don't know who to choose. Maybe we can start from this side. Drow.
Thank you very much, dear panelists, distinguished delegates, for your contributions as well. They were very insightful, and I'm grateful for them. So I wanted to ask something a little different. So we've been speaking in depth these days about inclusion and community-based initiatives and youth engagement. And I'm grateful to be in this room full of truly inspiring future energy leaders. However, I think it's important that we don't leave anyone behind, including young people who are not currently engaged in these topics. So my question to the panelists would be, how would you personally approach engaging members of our communities, especially young people, who are not currently engaged in these themes or even feel alienated with regards to the importance of these themes in their lives for whatever reason, be it personal, community-based, resource-based, whatever the reason may be? Thank you.
So I think all youth delegates here are now influencers. So once you're back, the first thing I would encourage all of you to talk to your friends, basically. You're the one who actually could share whatever you saw, you learned, you gained here. We have the power of sharing everything we gained. We have the power to actually make the impact ourselves to our colleagues, friends, and everyone near us. Basically, the first thing everyone usually do after any event, they share it in LinkedIn. Basically, you will write everything, what happened, what you did there. But what truly matters, it's to have these discussions with your friends apart from LinkedIn posts or Instagram posts, basically. Sharing the real experience you lived and the questions you had, the questions that you got answer for, and debating with them will be the most powerful thing to do. So I think one of the most encouraging thing or that will make anyone actually engage in these discussions is to have debates with your friend. That the easiest way actually to make them interested to engage more like you. That's my answer. I'm not sure if anyone followed.
That was a very powerful answer, Haneen, and I think that's a clear example of what making the most out of a platform and engaging and being prepared. So very lucky to have you here. We don't have a lot of time, so I know Dr. Nawal and Gowri will be throughout the halls, and they're very approachable that you can come and talk to at any point. So maybe I can just give the floor back to both of you for any closing remarks, and then sadly we have to close off.
Well, first of all, I just would like to say thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here. Thank you for giving me the platform to be inspired by you and to listen to you and to be part of this extremely interesting conversation. I just want to say, don't stop here and don't stop at this platform. And as Haneen mentioned, use your platforms, which I'm sure all of you have, your different social media platforms, to promote your cause and to also engage with other youth and other colleagues into this sector. Keep inspiring, keep moving, and don't stop.
I was just sitting and thinking that when I was your age, I don't think I had this neither the exposure nor this breadth of tools and the AI and everything that you are all exposed to. And would I want to relive my life and, be at the age you are? And I think probably not. Why? Because because I think despite the fact that you have these really huge access to these technologies, but you also have the challenge of navigating a world that's become much more complex and navigating a space where we are becoming much less of what we really are. We are all social animals, but these technologies also kind of push us into becoming very individualistic. So what I would say is that while you do take advantage of this great space of the technological innovations that you're getting exposed to, but also don't forget to meet face to face with your friends, your family, stay connected, and really share the ups and downs of navigating this complex world, because it needs you to stay networked, it needs you to stay together and to achieve what you have in mind. And I just want to wish you all the very best.
Thank you to our speakers. It's been a pleasure actually to have this discussion with you and with the rest of the youth. Now we will continue with a different dialogue and we will just have 1 minute to actually change. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. So you can take a breather and have a drink of water until we transition to the next phase. Hello, everyone. So let's get started. So this is sort of the third segment of our high-level closing event. And I realized that in the process of the youth conference, I never really introduced myself as well. So I might as well. So my name is Sajit Vijaysurya, and I'm originally from Sri Lanka and reside in the United States at the moment. In my daytime job, I work for the National Laboratory of the Rockies, which was formerly known as the National Renewable Energy Laboratory of the United States. and additionally, I work for the Clean Energy Ministerial as well in my portfolio. And here in the IRENA Youth Council, I represent the IEEE Young Professionals, which is sort of a youth constituency of around 150,000 young professionals in engineering and technological practices spread across 190 countries. So it's been a real honor serving in the Youth Council and now bringing this closing segment to you all. And I just wanted to sort of point out at the very beginning how cool was that first segment. So we had two very young leaders taking the lead and moderating 8 other young people. And we had the senior experts and observers looking from the back rows and commenting on it. So that is what we want to see, that young people actually taking the lead, and at the same time, the expertise of the senior delegates being mixed into that, and that creates that dialogue that we really, really desire. So when I start this moderation, I always go back a little bit on time and reflect on this journey. I think Lydia also at the beginning pointed out how we started back in 2019-20 time period. Because people always ask, like, we have these very big conferences in the United Nations headquarters, anywhere else, and what are the actual outcome of those conferences at the end of the day? What are the post processes, right? So actually this particular youth forum is a result and a post process of the 2019 Climate Action Summit that took place in New York. So during that summit, we had a very, very vital bilateral with the Director General Francesco of IRENA, and that's where this spark of idea was created. Let's go ahead and have an annual youth forum. And even after that, we had the first youth forum in January 2020, and then we know what happened. So we went into the pandemic, very uncertain waters, and we didn't know what would happen, but still we survived. The youth forum survived, and we had subsequent youth forums happening every year despite the challenges thrown at us. So in the current uncertain waters as well, that would be the same, and I'm pretty sure there will be space for young people in the IRENA space. So that is, I'm not promising, but it will be the case for sure. So we can be hopeful and march forward with our ideas and continue to lead this process and lead these ideas that you have provided. So with that, we will jump into the panel discussion today. We are joined by 5 very esteemed panelists to further continue this discussion and take a little bit of a look into the future. Now, we have had our discussions, thematic conversations, and the young people have presented their observations and their ideas that should be carried out. And let's start this dialogue towards what can be next and have that dialogue in an intergenerational manner where the panelists today can further extend those ideas into future implementation and define that future pathway. So for the introduction of our esteemed panel and carry out this discussion, I will invite Andrea to take up and continue.
Thank you. Oh, yeah. Thank you. I'm very pleased to introduce our panelists for this deep dive dialogue. Just super quickly can introduce myself. For those who don't know me, my name is Andrea Alcázar. I'm a Sustainable Development Engineer, and I'm currently working as Program Manager at Student Energy, also representing Student Energy in the Youth Council. And yeah, I'm going to start with our introductions for our very amazing panelists for today. First, we have Riyad Medev, who is the Director of UNDP Sustainable Energy Hub, leading global efforts to expand sustainable energy access and drive a just energy transition across 130 countries. With decades of experience in policy, finance, and advocacy, he has played a pivotal role in shaping high-level global energy discussions, contributing to G7, G20, and COPs, while advancing UNDP's energy agenda at the country level to maximize impact. Next, we have Gabriela Carrasco, who is a Mexican energy engineer and researcher at the Intelligence Division of Data Center Dynamics, the global leader in data center news, analysis, and events. She studies global data center growth through energy lens, previously as technical policy advisor for the Mexican Data Center Association, and she worked to align the industry with local 2030 agenda goals. Her work focuses on mapping digital infrastructure and advancing on sustainable development. She has participated in youth initiatives, including Youth for Energy, focusing on energy transition dialogues in Latin America. Next, we have Stefano Raimondi, who is energy attaché at the Italian Embassy in Abu Dhabi. Previously, he served as director of the Incentives, New Technologies, and Research Energy sector, head of Division 3 at the International Energy Relations. He was also Italian delegate to International Energy Agency and IRENA, and Director General of Industrial Property and head of division. Next, we also have Jude Bergis with us. Jude works as an electrical engineer at SA Power Networks, specializing in the integration of renewable energy and the decarbonization of the Australian electricity grid. Holding a dual degree in electrical and electronics engineering and finance and banking from the University of Adelaide, he bridges the gap between technical power systems engineering and economic viability. And last but not least, we have Corinne Reyes, who is a program manager at the United Nations Industrial Development Organization in Vienna, Austria. With over 15 years of experience, she's currently managing a portfolio of projects and programs in the field of sustainable energy, industrial decarbonization, and climate change adaptation in industries with geographical focus on sub-Saharan Africa. And yeah, well, welcome all. Thank you for joining us today. And with that said, I think we can jump right into the questions for this panel. And the first question we have is for Riyadh, which is, UNDP has a long track record of supporting governments in translating policy commitments into real-world delivery. In the context of from AI to access in renewable energy, how has the use of digital tools and AI strengthened this work by accelerating renewable energy deployment and expanding access? And how are youth-led innovations being integrated into national and local delivery mechanisms?
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you for inviting me again, and good afternoon all. I hope you are all doing well and you still have the same energy than yesterday. I was really impressed when you were reading my bio. I was not recognizing myself, and I was wondering if I was not going to recruit this person, but finally it's me. But thank you also for sharing the questions, because we had, as you can imagine, the question in advance. You know, Sajid has this very strange habit of sending us questions and giving us a lot of homeworks in order to prepare them. So it's very often not a surprise. But let me come back to a few elements regarding your questions on the future, and there's also on the experience of UNDP. You know, UNDP comparative advantage has always been bridging the ambitions of policy and the reality on the ground. And what has changed this last years is the speed and the scale. And digital tools and AI are now compressing timelines from planning to commissioning and turning energy system into adaptive, into learning system, rather than into really static infrastructure. Let me give you 3 main points. And you know now how I always think. First of all, AI, as we discussed yesterday, is clearly accelerating renewable development by turning planning into precision delivery. But as we discussed yesterday, it also has a bright side and a very dark one. So it does not mean that you have all the solution with AI. It is part of the solution on the energy transition. It is not the solution. But the reality, we need to integrate it in our reality, in the ecosystem where we are doing the transition. So AI-enabled forecasting, digital twins, grid analytics, which improve the renewable energy dispatch accuracy by around 20 to 30%. And it reduced limitation by 10 to 12%, enabling faster integration of wind and solar at scale. That is one point which is very important. But in several countries, pilots, smart grid analytics have reduced peak for around 3 to 5%. It's very important, 3 to 5%. It's not a small amount. So this question is no longer whether renewable can scale, but it is whether institution can scale intelligence as fast as hardware. The number two is digital systems are converting efficiency, and they are converting efficiency gains into fiscal space for access and inclusion. And here, energy efficiency still accounts for nearly 60% of the global energy losses. 60%, which is costing developing economies approximately $1.3 trillion by 2030 due to unreliable and energy-intensive systems. So even 10% of efficiency gain enabled by AI demand management, predictive maintenance, can unlock billions of fiscal savings. And those fiscal savings can be used in investment in socials. And that's very important, second point. Third point, and this is regarding youth. Youth-led innovation scales fastest when embedded, what we said yesterday, in public digital infrastructure and taking into account national governance of energy. And across UNDP-supported ecosystem, young innovators are moving beyond hardware deployment. And this is the reality that we see on the ground. Beyond just building, is going to building analytics, demand response, optimization tool that help to integrate directly into national energy system. What I want to say is at the end, the shift is before anything else structural. Youth are no longer beneficiaries of the energy transition. They are, and we've seen it yesterday in our discussion, they are the operator of its digital layer. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Riyad, for those insightful,
Yeah, you're playing ping pong, huh?
Yeah. Because we are so dynamic, we have to keep it going like that. And thank you for those wonderful remarks. It's very important that how you point out like 1, 2, 3, because that's how the young people remember it, and then they can pursue those ideas into implementation and explore those ideas into further in their own spaces. So talking about spaces, we will sort of jump in and into from policy side to governance side, and then a little bit of technology side as well in this conversation, because we have to sort of balance things around if we are really serious about these topics in going forward. So with that, I'll come to Gabby. The question is that as the rapid growth of data centers drives unprecedented electricity demand, often concentrated in specific regions, how can AI, smart grid planning, and renewable integration be used to manage this load in ways that do not strain local grids or displace community energy needs? And what safeguards are needed to ensure that communities benefit from this digital expansion rather than bearing its cost? I know it's a very technical approach, but let's go for it.
Yeah, well, let's go for it. Thank you, everybody, for staying here and actually contribute to the conversation, even if we had like a really extensive day. It's really good that you're here. And well, as Sahid said, it's a technical question, but I'll try my best to actually put some numbers so we can get in our minds like the idea of what we're talking about. But in terms of community, I think that's like the key word when we're talking about AI deployment. So I just wanted to share with you that 750 million people are lacking electricity access. I think we discussed that yesterday, but I have new numbers for you. 2.6 billion people are lacking internet access. 2.6 billion. So some of some people in the world don't even have electricity. So of course they won't have internet access. But even if you have electricity, you're not guaranteed internet access. So of course the most developed nations have the access to all of this. But I wanted to paint the picture of what a lot of our realities might look like. So if electricity access is not universal, then of course internet access is not universal, so then AI won't be universal. So a lot of infrastructure asymmetries might manifest even like on a higher level. So communities, even so individuals like ourselves, will pay the price for these asymmetries. So going back to data centers, I want to also illustrate like the picture of what data centers actually mean for some places. For example, India. 45% of the Indian population does not have internet access. India. And, you know, India has one of the largest data center markets in the world. They're the 13th. They have 1.7 gigawatts of installed operational capacity, and by 2030, they're going to be 8 gigawatts of data centers in India, and half of the population does not have internet access. So, you know, I think the whole day we've been hearing the 1.5 electricity consumption of data centers worldwide. We're expecting it to double by 2030. So we're witnessing, like, for the first time in modern history, a situation where the speed of technological innovation is dramatically exceeding the capacity of physical systems to adapt. So the structural characteristics of the data center sector, they are present in, well, they're almost the biggest one of them sponsored by large corporations. They're hyper-concentrated in some places. They have high investment amounts, and that's why we think about them. But for the longest time, I think a lot of you, it's the first time you've heard of data centers, and I think all of us in this room have internet access. So for me, it's really important that we understand what internet actually means. It means infrastructure, and of course, going back to the question, it's energy at the end. And I want to share with you that actually in a lot of different data center markets around the world, no matter the size, also, well, especially in the largest data center markets, the problem is not generation. The problem is not even renewable generation. The problem is actually the transmission lines. You can generate a lot of renewable energy, but if you have no way of taking that renewable energy to the place that is consumed, then it's like if you did not even had it in the first place. So I think the focus should rely heavily on load efficiency and transmission line improvement, such as reinforcements and building more capacity. So that would be my answer to that question.
Thank you, Gabby, for this insightful reflection. I think like it reminds us that yes, technology development is definitely very important, but it's more important to keep people, communities, society in the heart of the transition that we're living and still developing. Our next question is for Stefano, and it is, how can Italy, working with partners such as the UAE, help empower youth-led AI and digital innovation across both large-scale renewables and decentralized energy systems, while ensuring these efforts create meaningful jobs and entrepreneurial pathways for young people in emerging energy markets?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. And the approach to artificial intelligence is quite, let's say, a gray area, very difficult to distribute myself into a very simple solution. So I can split the question in two main areas. One is ethical. And of course, we need to think it over how could be the influence and the impact on the society. And also the element which created more discrepancy between, different people that got internet access, the energy, and the other part of the world that they, of course, are not able to get to electricity as simple life. And we are talking about 600, 700 millions of people around the world. What we can reply to your question, very interesting. It's to create a condition to how can we, in Italian experience, use AI in the energy. Then could be, let's say, a function of the energy transition. So as a technician more than a philosophic aspect and on the AI, on the science particularly, I take I say more attention of what's going on, which is the advantages for AI in order to get the result of the decarbonization in the world. So in this particular case, we have to consider the increase of efficiency of the entire system, electrical system, and demand consumer system of digital and robotics and all things around are very important to decrease the emission and to get the main target is I say achieve the reduction of the emission in order to avoid any much more impact of the condition about our globe. And then of course we can see the, let's say, the positive side of the artificial intelligence. Of course, this is not try to solve all the problems that AI brings together with the impact on the world on global scale. But of course, it doesn't depend on this particular technology. This particular technology, let's say, is a more evidence the discrepancy between the different situations and the social life in different parts of the world. So in this case, I would say something that had the, let's say, difference, the, let's say, the unbalanced situation. So in this case, probably the best thing to think about artificial intelligence used properly and try to get the most positive side of the part. So in this case, the idea is to create a condition to, first of all, increase the efficiency of the system, the power system, the consumer system, all the applications we can have with digital twin or the other sectors or other utilization. Just thinking about the consumption in the industry, it's a huge of the consumption of the other important sectors, such as electricity, but I would say building could be everything, hotel, whatever, and transport is particularly the part that we have to think it over, but also in the way we produce electricity. So that's an important element which we have to think it over. That's the one part, let's say, the positive side of the AI, and then find out, that's the regulatory framework in which we have to think about the new contribution. I think it's a very important element in which could be enrich the discussion with the policymaker and see what will be the necessity, how to regulate the artificial intelligence, how to manage it properly. And I would say this is a part that probably it will take, let's say, more time, because what the AI created is also a leapfrog between the advancing of the technology and the timing and the pace in which the regulatory framework could be set up. So in this discrepancy of timing, there is a lack, is a gray area in which everyone could play a different role. So what I suggest and think how the young generation could benefit, how can we improve the system, how can we, let's say, decrease the imbalance between different areas of the world in terms of approach to energy, accessibility, security, and affordability, and try to get the best result in this particular situation. That's my field. I can help to find a solution. And this is the main part. So once we get some good results in terms of national basis or area, probably we can share, we can teach, we can learn from each other and share the particular condition. But I have to say, we are in a competitive world. So competition is also made by technology. So when we talk about competition, we are talking about also the basic information, the basic patterns, the basic tools that make a company or a country more competitive more than the other. So in the end, what I would suggest is to create a condition to improve our life, as a social life, try to balance the gender, for example. This is important, but also geographical gender, and otherwise the access more, I wouldn't say just AI, but also the basic information, the education skill, all the activity that makes the, let's say, more affordable, the energy, but also the progress, about not just development, but also the progress in terms of social aspect that we are most of the time forgetting. So the meaning of the just transition, it's a sort of balance between the advancement in terms of technology, but also sharing, I'd say, equality and affordable use of electricity to guarantee the life of everyone in every part of the world. I know it's a very difficult target for us, but the philosophy of the no one left behind is clear. So everyone should have the same opportunity. So I think the best information, the basic use, the basic rules could be set up for everyone in order to get the two main aspects in a win-win situation. One is decrease, but create the condition for a better life for the future. And the second one to be sharing the same experience in different parts of the world. That's, I think, AI very helpful, as well as the internet. That's why we are talking about today and sharing our thought about this particular issue. So from my experience, I want to just have a quick, maybe I took so much time. I think it's enough for the first. Thank you, and sorry for that.
No worries at all, Stefano. So thank you for touching up on several aspects of the AI and related technology transition, and then going into the energy transition aspect of that and the emissions relation, and then also moving on towards the social aspects and economic aspects as well. It's a sort of it has to be a balanced game, otherwise we won't be successful in this transition with the new technologies coming in. So since we went into the sort of the technology side quite a bit, I'll come to Karin now on the sort of the industrial perspective and the entrepreneurship perspective and employment also. So my question is, from an industrial development perspective, how can AI and digital innovation be strategically leveraged to create new pathways for youth employment, entrepreneurship, and local value creation across renewable energy value chains, while simultaneously accelerating access to affordable, clean energy in emerging and undeserved markets.
Yes, thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. It's amazing to see that you all pushed through until the end on this exciting topic. I think a lot has been said by the previous speakers to frame the topic, so I think I jump right into the industry perspective. And obviously, from an industrial development perspective, AI and digital innovation can accelerate clean energy access and create jobs for youth. So it's not just a tool for efficiency, but really AI and digital innovation can open new opportunities for entrepreneurship and for local value creation. And I come to some more practical examples shortly. But also AI can make renewable energy cheaper. I think that's an important statement, and more reliable. It can, it doesn't have to, but it can. By predicting, for example, maintenance needs for solar and wind farms, optimizing smart grids, we do lower cost and improve performance, for example, and this also creates industrial opportunities, like producing smart components and building digital energy platforms, for example. But also AI can help bring energy to underserved communities. It can optimize, for example, mini-grids, solar home systems, and productive use applications. But we also must manage the risks. I think this has been mentioned before, and it cannot be overemphasized. AI can increase energy demand as well. It can amplify social inequalities and raise cybersecurity and governance challenges. There is a gender bias and exclusion remain real concerns. So from UNIDO, we do address these issues, and we do coordinate a global alliance for AI for industry and manufacturing, where we promote responsible AI use, including a particular area on energy, and also create industrial opportunities and skills, I think, for the future. And this is what brings me also to emphasize a bit more the youth aspect. Is really, it's important to position the youth not only as users of technology, but as co-creators and system designers. And this is where we do have a very strong interface with the youth at UNIDO in many of our initiatives. But allow me also to give you a concrete example. I mentioned solar home systems and off-grid appliances. We always talk about, often talk about the underserved communities that can benefit from digital development. Do we have any youth representative here from rural Kenya? No, unfortunate. But so this example is from rural Kenya, and it's also being rolled out in Zambia. As we have heard many times, and you're all aware, many rural areas are not, do not have access to electricity, and many households depend on off-grid appliances, including solar home systems. Now, obviously, the prime target is always to deploy these technologies to the households. But there comes a time when these technologies are not working. And then you are a household in rural Kenya, and you don't have access to services to repair, for maintenance, and for the end-of-life treatment of these technologies. So what's happening? Very often, you find a dysfunctional and broken solar home system somewhere in the backyard of the households. So what we are doing now in an initiative, we are working with technical and vocational training centers, and there are 120 throughout rural Kenya, to develop with augmented and virtual reality tools, trainings for particularly youth to become and strengthen the services of young entrepreneurs in these rural areas, to offer these services throughout the country. So you don't have to drive to Nairobi, which literally almost nobody would do, to find the services to be repaired. And it's a very effective tool. It even works without internet access. So, you know, the typical goggles that you all know, with augmented and virtual reality, you can train young entrepreneurs, and then they get basically these offline, they can use it offline, go to the private households and offer these services. So we also avoid just dumping dysfunctional technologies. So just to give you also a very practical example how these technologies are being developed and used. Thank you.
Thank you, Karin, so much for sharing this perspective and highlighting the two faces of AI, how it can help us bring energy to underserved communities, but also highlighting the risks and how the access gap, not only to energy now, but also to AI and advanced technologies could grow if we're not working and keeping basically human development in mind. So thank you so much. Our next question is for Jude. And it says, as AI increasingly shapes grid planning, flexibility, and system operations, how can policymakers and financiers work together to ensure that AI-enabled grid investment unlock financing not only for large-scale renewable projects, but also for decentralized and community-level solutions? And what role can youth play in bridging the gap between digital innovation, grid readiness, and bankable energy access?
Thank you, Andrea. Appreciate the question. I think it's important to set the context and the tone with where I am from. So I am from South Australia. So we have one of the most renewable grids in the world. About 1 in 2 people have rooftop solar on their household. So if you're a person in South Australia and you look at either Stefano or Andrea, one of them would probably have a rooftop solar system. And we're seeing that increasingly, as more rooftop solar is prevalent in South Australia, there are more issues. And we always talk about how do we, encourage people to get more solar, how do we encourage renewable generation, but we also need to make sure that the grid is ready for it. And Andrea mentioned flexibility, and inherently, flexibility is a part of a two-sided coin, and the other side of the coin is volatility, it's complexity. I think for most of our lives, we, flick a light switch and the light comes on, and that's about all we think about electricity. But I think now is the time when we have to think more. We're seeing things like, dynamic pricing. We're seeing, feed-in tariffs, and increasingly, the electricity system and the energy system as a whole is becoming more complex. And one of the things I'd really encourage you to keep at the back of your minds is, do we really want to expose the average consumer to this complexity? Does the average person want to talk in, kilowatt hours and feed-in tariffs, or do they want to just flick the switch and the light comes on? Going back to the financing part of it, which has been a recurrent theme throughout today, how do we ensure that investors have certainty that they'll make their money back on renewable energy projects? And going back to the households don't, as far as I know, think about investment in renewable energies as IRRs and NPVs. They think about, would I rather put a solar system or would I spend my money on something else? What's the feed-in tariff? These are things that everyday consumers think about. So regardless of whether it's a developer or whether it's a household, it's important to ensure that the incentives are in the right place. And we spoke earlier at the youth booth about how do we unlock flexible financing. It's really hard. Renewable energy projects are extremely hard, and infrastructure projects in general, because they require a high initial capital expenditure. And why would you trust someone with a whole bunch of money when you don't know if you can make your money back? And I think that's where all the flexibility in demand comes in, the flexibility in financing, the flexibility in risk comes in. Youth have an integral role to play in terms of thinking about what these alternative financing routes are. So how can we incentivize people to, adopt renewable energy? Because quite frankly, I don't think most people care about how renewable their power is. The average person. I think on average, this room would probably care more. But I think it's important to look at the incentives. And I come from South Australia, so the reason we have so much rooftop solar is because of large government subsidies and large feed-in tariffs, which catalyzed the huge adoption of rooftop solar. And we're seeing something very similar now with household batteries, where there is a federal government scheme which subsidizes household batteries. And we're seeing about 100 batteries being installed every day in Australia. That's 100 batteries every single day. So it's time to explore alternative financing routes. And I'll give you some examples. So one of the projects we're looking at running is a battery energy storage system. And in it, we are basically oversizing the system because, as some of you might know, the electricity consumption patterns, regardless of where you are quite peaky. So oftentimes, that's probably about 2% of the year where you're reaching the maximum demand. And to shave that peak, you need that flexibility. So for those 2% days where the demand is at a maximum, we can reserve the battery capacity. But for the other 98% of the time, can we lease out the storage capacity in this battery to retailers? Can we invite private investors? Can they use that platform, the energy that's not really useful for the utility anyway, because we have the capacity to participate in arbitrage, to make money off it, to provide frequency support to the grid? Because obviously with these variable renewable generation, we're seeing less grid stability and increasingly less security. And I'm seeing it firsthand because I work in power quality in one of the most renewable grids in the world. So we need to be thinking about these things. Another scheme that's unfortunately causing us problems in South Australia, but is a very good incentive, is some retailers provide free power from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Now we know that the levelized cost of energy is lowest when there is solar. And if we encourage people to use solar in those hours, to charge their appliances in those hours, it greatly reduces the grid congestion. As a grid operator, I'd much rather have everyone try to charge their EVs when they've got maximum generation from their roofs, rather than at 6 p.m. when they come back from work. What we're seeing with this variable renewable generation is that it doesn't actually match up with diversity. So in utilities, I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with it, we have this concept called diversity of demand. And we rely on diversity of demand to ensure that the demand of electricity on the network is not peaky, is that it's consistent. But increasingly we're seeing that it gets peakier, unfortunately. So we need to incentivize the customers to participate. And not only is there a technological side to it, but there is a behavioral side to it. We need to think about developers on one hand. Why would they want to build large-scale transmission projects, such as for data centers? And then there's a consumer who doesn't want to be exposed to the complexity. They just want to save money and have power when they switch on the light. And the role of the youth, again, is not limited to digital innovations. We spoke about demand forecasting, about predictive maintenance, and these are all very good, but these are all things that require a lot of frameworks, a lot of standards. Digital tin, you mentioned, for example, is something we're trying to implement. And something as simple as what resolution do we need to have the data at to make the decisions that we need to make, to predict when an asset is going to fail. These things are fundamental, and unfortunately, there's a huge gap in understanding across the industry. And it's a huge opportunity for partners, both government and private, to work together to solve these issues. And the role of the youth is to think about these alternative business models, how to incentivize people to get renewables. Because at the end of the day, it's very hard to convince people about renewables if there isn't a cash incentive at the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Jude, for bringing the conversation into all those enablers and sharing your personal perspectives and going on to the finance side, and which is one of the most important things. So we have unfortunately come to the closure of the session because I was talking to Josh yesterday and I was saying that we could do this all day because we just love it. But unfortunately now we have to go to our own spaces and get the work done. And so I want to thank all our panelists for their incredible interventions today. We just had the largest IRENA Youth Forum in capacity. So congratulations and cheers for us. And my final message for you is keep looking up, whatever the uncertainties that you are facing and the challenges that are facing. On a personal note, my grandmother was studying and using oil lamps, cooking on fire stove wood, and operating diesel rubber machines, but she never instructed me to look down and do the same. And she instructed me to look up so I can go to the most innovative national laboratory in the United States, which has solar wind world records, and keep going up. So you do the same and never look back. So that is our final message. And thank you, everyone. And please convene for the group photo at the end. Thank you.
Where? Oh, in front.
Please, please. Facciamo il... beh, tanto siamo qua.
I have to stand on the tables.
I think we might have to. It's just that I don't.
Can you please leave the room as soon as possible? Thank you so much.